Hey, looking forward to this program. Would you please rename yourself by either clicking on the three dots in the corner of your image or put it into the chat, putting in any preferred pronouns and your town or city and organization. Thank you very much. I will repeat that in a minute because a lot of people are still coming in. But I'm going to get started in just a moment. We're letting people in as fast as we can. I will repeat the message I just said. Okay. And that is, okay, here we go. So if you would, as you come in, please rename yourself by clicking on the three dots in the corner of your image and put in any preferred pronouns in your town or city and any organization, please. Thank you. Got a lot of interest this morning, which is terrific, and we will get started in just a second. We're letting in people as fast as we can. All right, I will get started. And Jack, if you could keep admitting people as they enter the waiting room, I'd appreciate it. So Massachusetts Climate Action Network seeks to accelerate equitable decarbonization in Massachusetts by empowering local residents, advocates, and community members to take action. Today's program is all about taking action. The organization is 25 years old. We provide a network and expertise to help local groups take action on climate. And today we are asking each of you involved in a local group to take these 4 actions. If it's not you that's interested, you personally that's interested in one of these topics, it's someone else in your organization, in your local community. We are a network of organizations. We have over 60 chapters and thousands of amazing advocates. That's all of you. 68 people and counting here. Here are some of our recent programs. And I will just mention that the June 9th program was my talk where I previewed the project that is being launched today. We previewed it June 9th. It's being launched officially today. And in the interim, there was quite a lot of further attention paid to it. I will remind everyone that the program itself is 12 to 1. And all are invited to stay on at 1 o'clock till 1:30 to stay on for what we call open network. And that can either continue the conversation that we're already having or any other facilitated sharing. So important. Please hold questions until after all the initial presentations. Also, please hold on chatting until after all the initial presentations. When we are ready for discussion, please raise your digital hand under reactions to be recognized, and we'll try to go as quickly as we can verbally. And please mute when not speaking. Keep your comments brief. Again, please, now that we've got 71 people here and more coming, please rename yourself by clicking on the 3 dots in the upper right corner or put into chat. It's important that we have an idea what your town or city is. We do expect local organizing. That is very important to each of these initiatives. Thank you so much for joining today. Autumn Initiatives and Actions. Again, in June, I asked, what are we doing next 5 years, new and different? And the answers, some of them are being presented today. What is new and different? What is appropriate for the time? What is appropriate for an impact that you want to have locally? Please, please make use of these autumn initiatives. We know these efforts are right for this moment, and we look forward to hearing feedback. We hope you will be able to implement each of these locally. If it's not you personally, please share with the right organizer that you know of. Each speaker today will be introducing a separate initiative. The presentations are geared to convey the basics, but not all the details. Depending on interest, we can do in-depth trainings and/or sharings. And important links will be dropped in the chat after all the presentations. There's arguments to be made to do it earlier, to do it later, but this is how we're doing it today. So thanks for your patience. With that, Halina's going to start us off with Climate Goals Tracker, which has been, I would say, where are we, September, 7 months in the making. It's a collaborative project, as you'll see, and it is also 10 years in the making. Those of you who have been around for a minute know that that we've been needing this kind of information, this kind of feedback for many years. So thank goodness to everyone who worked on it, bringing it to today. And with that, Halina, if you're ready, on to you.
Thank you, Fred. And I want to stress what you said, Fred, that this is that this has been in the workings for many years, because communities have been asking repeatedly for some sort of resources and some help to help them understand where they are and what goals should they set for themselves, and how do they know that they're making progress towards these goals. Most communities do not have technical resources sufficient to build this data management system for themselves. So here is MCAN basically presenting it for them, a tool. I'm Halina Brown. I am a member of the board, so only since the last spring, and I entered this project halfway through, so I'm sure there will be some questions that others on the team will be able to answer better than me, but I'll do my best. So what is Climate Goals Tracker? It is a powerful new tool to help Massachusetts communities to evaluate where they stand at the moment, at this time, with their decarbonization efforts in the residential sectors through adoption of some key technologies. To set goals for annual goals, maybe half a year goals, and to track progress. This project is a result of very close collaboration of Green Energy Consumers Alliance with Larry Gretchen at the helm, Mass Energize with Ellen Ton at the helm, and of course, MCAN under the tremendous leadership of Fred Davis. So what do we mean by these three key technologies? We're talking about adoption of electric vehicles, EVs, heat pumps, HPs, and roof solar installations, PVs. If there was a link to this tool here, you're going to get it soon, but if it was here and we would click on it, this is what you would see on the home page, the front page. And don't read the small print. I will explain that very soon. I just want to draw your attention to this box at the bottom of the screen, where it asks you to enter the name of your community. I did it as an example, took Framingham as a populous town. Actually, it's now a city, I believe. in a larger Boston area, maybe, I don't know, maybe 70,000 people or so live there. It has a mix of residential and commercial. So I thought it would be a good example, but it's a random example. Please keep that in mind. And here is when somebody from Framingham clicks on their name, this is what they will see. Okay, and what they see is this, that they currently, at the end of 2024, they have 1,531 electric vehicles. At the end of 23, 1,246 heat pumps. And end of 22, they have 1,699 megawatts of solar on residential roofs. Why are these years different? These are the most recent years for which we have data. If they were, we would love to say 2024 for all of them, but this data arrives with some delay. So the reference year is different for each of those. And this is the answer they will get. They will say that this year, in order to meet their goals, they have to adopt 1,378 EVs, 623 HPs, and add 185 megawatts of solar power. Where do these numbers come from? Well, we can trace them to goals that Massachusetts set. Massachusetts is currently, next slide, please. Yeah. Massachusetts is currently legally obligated under the law to reduce by 2030 its greenhouse gas emissions by 50% relative to 1990. Right? It's a very ambitious goal. And in 2020, in order to comply with this law, Massachusetts issued a mass carbonization roadmap. You see here the cover of it, which translated this overall goal, 50% by 2030, into specific numbers of how many EVs, HPs, and new additional PV power need to be adopted by 2030 statewide. And of course, our tracker, you will see in a minute, translates these state numbers into each community. But let's do it step by step. So these are the Massachusetts goals. 900,000 EVs on the roads by 2030, 500,000 HPs, and 8,360 megawatts of solar, of roof solar. This is what Massachusetts has to do. By the end of the reference year, between 22 and 24, depending on the technology, there were 140 EVs, 126 HPs, and 1,340 megawatts of solar. So you can see there is a big difference between 900,000 and 104,000. So essentially, this year and each year thereafter, until 2030, Massachusetts has to adopt so many of those technologies, 127 one, 62 of the other, and 1,340 of the third. And if you look at this number and compare it with where we are right now, it's basically 90% this year, 90% of everything that was there at the end of 24 still has to be adopted this year. And then the next year, and then the next year. With HPs, we had more progress, 50% of what we had at the end of 23. And solar is doing pretty well. Only 10% of what was there already needs to be adopted this year, and then each year thereafter. Okay, so that's how, these are the state numbers. And now each community, if each community increases, in other words, every year the number of EVs by 90% of what they had at the end of 24, by 50% of what they had at the end of 23, and by 10% of what they had, PVs, what they had by 2022, the state will meet its goals and we will all celebrate. Now, let's go back to frame income. You saw it very quickly earlier, but now I present it very clearly. So you can see this is the state of affairs right now. Right now in the left side column, and this is how much they would have to do if they want to meet that goal. I want to stress this is not a mandate for each community. This is a guide. They will set, each community has to look around, consider all its situations, all its circumstances, and decide what their goals will be each year. But we feel that if we provide you with this based on from top down calculations, the work from bottom up will know roughly the direction and the goals eventually that have to be met. So this is the carbon tracker. And I want to, in my last slide, say that many people work really hard on this. Zana Kranmer, who is at Bentley University, assembled all the data sources, organized the database, and developed the software. Thank you very much, Zana. I assume you are somewhere among the present. Also, I want to thank Lara Kretchen and Ellen Ton from respectively Green Energy Consumers Alliance and Mass Energize, and of course, Fred for his fantastic leadership in keeping us all focused. So I think that now I will end my presentation. Larry and Ellen may want to say a few words, so I am giving the floor to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Halina, and hello, everybody. My name is Larry Cretion. I'm with the Green Energy Consumers Alliance. And so first of all, I want to thank MCAN, particularly Fred. This is Fred's brainchild. He thought of the concept. It's a great idea. But Zana Kranmer did all the hard work of pulling this the actual dashboard together. Anna Vanderspeck is our EV program director. She's here with me. You know, we're very interested in all three of the technologies. I just want to make a couple of obvious points, I think. First of all, is that the climate mandate that we have in Massachusetts, I think it's sacred that we hit the goal for 2030, because if we don't, it doesn't say much about society and how we will get to net zero by 2050. And the goal that was set, that Halina referred to, was set, well, net zero has been around actually since 2008, but the specific numbers on the EVs, the heat pumps, and the solar was out of that 2020 document that she referenced. And what's important to note is that was before Joe Biden was elected and implementing the Inflation Reduction Act. And it was before Donald Trump was elected for the second time, and we ended up getting the big, beautiful bill. And the reason I say that is that the goals that were set in 2020 are for Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We certainly want more federal support than we're getting, but we have set these goals, and they are not self-executing. They will not happen just because they were put down into a document. It will depend upon individual people to go out and get an EV or heat pump or put solar on their roof. And so it's done at a particular home, in a particular community. And I just think this is going to have a wonderful way for anybody in a community that's trying to do this sort of activism that we all do. You can look up your own community and see how it's going. These technologies are how it's going to get done. There are dozens of policies that can move people towards one of the three technologies. But the an old expression, I guess, is the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And in this case, it's the proof of whether or not we're actually going to achieve our goals is really dependent upon these three technologies. If you look at the 2020 plan, it explains why each of these three technologies are so paramount. So we're going to look forward to this, and we'll be curious to see what kind of questions people have. But thanks again, everybody, for coming here today, and we encourage you to keep looking at that dashboard as time goes on, and let's stimulate the adoption as we can.
I'm just going to chime in real briefly. Everyone's thanked everyone, but Xana really deserves a tremendous amount of credit for really doing all the heavy lifting, and she's a delight to work with. So from a Mass Energized perspective, for those of you who don't know us, we really are doing three things: providing training to communities. We have an annual conference and a monthly meeting of people like this in our community practice. We have a series of software tools that help you create local websites and now integrate that with some newsletters. And we're rolling out a new digital social media toolkit, which we're calling our social media magic kit. So if you want to learn more about that, because to get to these goals, we're going to have to really do a lot of new and different outreach and engagement, right? And the third thing that we do is provide some direct support for more focused campaigns. We've done some work with 7 communities in Metro West, some in the northern part, north of the city, sort of North Shore area, and happy to work with people on that. I'm also co-chair of my local energy committee in Wayland, and I would say functionally, there are 3 things this tool's just fantastic for. One is, many of you use the MAPC inventory in the past to do a baseline on your emissions, and this is something that can be used in lieu of that. The second thing is what Xana showed, which is that profile by community, just to see where you're at. We can all question whether we're setting how we're applying, extrapolating how we get from here to there for 2030. But most of us have a hard time knowing where are we right now. And you don't want to have to go to 3 different data sets. So this integrates this. And if you're using Mass Energized software, it'll pipe directly into your software. So just knowing where we are right now and having that regularly update is a huge tool for us. And it helps you look at setting goals. You can take it, as the 3 organizations have sort of done our best to conceive what goals might look like, but that's really up for all of us in different communities to say what's our role in hitting the all-important 2030 goals that Larry articulated. So again, I would say this is our first shot at it, and I think Fred would agree, and Xana would agree, and Larry and Anna, everyone who's helped, that feedback's great. This will be an evolving tool. It's something the state should have done for us, and we should all harass the state to make sure we can get better solar numbers, not just 2022, 2023. So it also shines a light on where the data are and whether they're as up to date as we'd like to have them. So thanks so much, everybody. And feel free in the chat if you want more information about Mass Energize. My emails, I'll put it in the chat.
Ellen, thank you so much. Larry, thank you so much. It's been a great collaboration, these 7 months working together. We've all been at this many more years than this year, but to have this come together this year is really special. Thank you very much. And I just want to, for those who are mathematically inclined, I just want to point out one little thing so we don't get too lost in this. If I can do this page. Yeah, just to go back. Can I go back? Oh, I can't go back. Well, that's sort of good for everyone, isn't it? Sorry, folks. There we go. Okay, just want to point out that these numbers are, as someone just said, are the real numbers. These percentages are the real percentages this year for 2025. 2026, we'll come back and look at them again. They're not going to be 90, 50, 10, but 90, 50, 10 are the numbers, are the percentages this year. The percentages will change. All right, just want to make that clear. And thank you again, collaborators. It's been great. I hope we continue to collaborate on this and many other things. All right, and with that said, and apropos of Larry's comments, our next presenter is Khadija. Here we go. Sorry. There we go. Talking about the awful ending of the federal incentives. Khadija, you're up.
Thank you so much, Fred, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this network meeting. And thank you, Halina, and congratulations to the team for launching the Climate Tracker goal. My presentation is actually very related to our state energy transition goals. And as Larry mentioned, as the federal incentives on main adoptions, namely solar, heat pump, and EVs, are going to disappear soon, we are going to talk about some of the actions we can take now. Next slide. All right, so as many of you know, and as was mentioned before, the Big Beautiful Bill Act was signed into law in the beginning of July of this year by President Trump. Aside from the other aspects of the bill, it has major impacts on climate goals and initiatives too. OBBA accelerates the end of nearly all households and commercial clean energy tax credits. When it was passed this summer, OBBA shortened the timeline that had originally been set by the Inflation Reduction Act. That means that incentives for EVs, heat pumps, solar, storage, and even EV chargers, which were supposed to go run into 2030s, will now end in just the next 1 or 2 years. This is a major setback because it cuts short stability, households, businesses, contractors, and also us advocates were counting on. But maybe the silver lining here is that it creates short-term organizing opportunity for us and our communities. We have a narrow window to make sure that our communities can still capture these benefits before they disappear and run out. Now we are going to look at some of the key federal incentives and their deadlines that can still be saved now. Electric vehicles and home energy upgrades front. For electric vehicles, people can get up to $7,500. For new EVs and for used EVs, $4,000. And the deadline for these tax credits are September 30th of this year. After that date, these federal EV credits are going to disappear. For EV chargers, there are still a $1,000 tax credit, and that is available till end of June of next year. For home energy upgrades, households can still claim support up to $2,000. And for a heat pump or water heater, $1,200, installation $600, and $150 for home energy audit. These installations needs to be completed by December, end of December of this year. So this is a time to get people moving because projects like this, as we all know, are going to take some planning, contractors, and also a wait time. Beyond vehicles and home retrofits, there are still major federal credits available for solar, battery storage, heat pump systems. On the solar and storage side, the federal government is still offering 30% tax credit, and in certain designated energy communities like former coal or fossil fuel towns, these credits are even higher, up to 40%. For household systems need to be installed by the end of this year, and for businesses, beginning of July of next year is the deadline, as long as the businesses have started beginning the construction. This is where our call to action comes in. This is the time that local leadership really matters. Massachusetts still has strong state level programs and our climate goals remain in place, as mentioned before. But federal support is ending, which makes community organizing very vital and important at this moment. Our job right now is to get the word out, maybe reach out to your communities with wordings like utilize federal incentives while they can, and encourage the households and businesses to start their projects immediately, because delay could mean that they will miss out entirely on some of these incentives. The benefits of these incentives are vast. They lower costs, speed up clean energy adoption. Even though federal help is winding down, we know that our state program and grassroots actions are still strong. So this is the moment for us to seize the moment and reach out to and help our communities to transition to clean energy together. Thank you very much, and I will answer questions at the end of the presentations if you have questions.
Thank you, Khadija. And yes, thank you, Halina. Also, I forgot to thank you. So this is terrific. I really appreciate that MCAN leadership is engaged in all of these initiatives. Next up is Jack. Jack Lundgren is going to talk about a new approach for reducing embodied carbon that has been in development for the past 3 months, using a lot of expertise, the greatest thinking in this subject, which has come along amazingly just in the last 2 years. The thinking about embodied carbon has really come along. So Jack, take it away. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction, Fred. And hello, everyone. My name is Jack Lundgren. I am directing the embodied carbon initiatives here at MCAN. And over the next few minutes, I will be introducing a new MCAN developed approach to reduce embodied carbon that I'm super excited to share with you all. So go to the next slide. Thanks. This approach is aimed at helping climate advocates, that's everyone on this call, to reduce embodied carbon in municipal construction projects. We're focusing on public construction because it is a significant chunk of the total embodied carbon in the country. It's about a quarter of the total, with private development comprising that other 3/4. But more importantly, the public construction process includes designated opportunities for public engagement that we will use to our advantage. Now, how will we take advantage of these opportunities? Well, this summer, MCAN has been engaged in extensive research and collaboration with experts and professionals across a wide variety of fields to develop model RFP language with embodied carbon requirements. This model language is intended to be inserted into municipal requests for proposals, RFPs, for engineering and architectural services. The idea here being that advocates, you, will take this language to your local government when there's an upcoming municipal construction project, with the goal to get this language inserted into a forthcoming RFP. Now, just to be clear, this approach is applicable to municipalities requesting proposals from architects and engineers for new construction. You don't need to know a lot about embodied carbon to use the model language, because we've put it into a technical format that's designed for architects and engineers. And if they struggle to understand the requirements, well, then that should be telling for the selection committee when evaluating these proposals. Yeah, and overall, this approach will embed thinking about embodied carbon in the early planning process, which is super crucial for effective reductions. It's the most important stage for ensuring that embodied carbon is reduced on any given project. But my goal here is not to go into too much detail about the specifics of our model language, but to just give a rough outline. We're planning on diving deeper into specific language and maybe strategy too at our next Better Buildings Advocates meeting. Fred will be talking about that next, but I hope to see many of you there to have that more comprehensive discussion about the language. But our language is essentially 3 parts. There's the purpose and definition section, which is pictured here on the screen from our current draft. It outlines sort of the introductory context of this work. It explains our mission, and of course, it gives definitions for more technical terms. And then we have the narrative and design commitment sections. There are 2 versions of these sections, with each being aimed to deal with either physically smaller projects, those expected to be 50,000 or less than, those expected to be less than 50,000 square feet, or larger projects, which would be those expected to be greater than or equal to 50,000 square feet. The narrative section requires applicants to make the case why they are best suited to implement embodied carbon reduction strategies, and therefore to be selected by a selection committee to work on the project. On screen, you can see that, for example, the language requires applicants to identify their general experience in reducing embodied carbon for comparable projects, and also requires identifying experience in more specific technical design methodologies like life cycle analysis. The design commitment section requires applicants to pursue embodied carbon reduction best practices. Our research and conversation with experts greatly developed our thinking on this part. We also drew a lot of inspiration from LEED version 5, which was released earlier this year and introduced that program's first embodied carbon requirements, meaning that all projects to be certified under it going forward will have to some extent, think about and evaluate embodied carbon. For our purposes, we have two main design requirements in our model language. Again, one for smaller projects less than 50,000 square feet, and one for larger projects that are greater than or equal to 50,000 square feet. And both of these were primarily adapted from credits in LEED version 5. But essentially, for smaller projects, our model language requires a commitment to measuring the upfront embodied carbon of all major building materials expected to be used on the project, and to evaluate them for alternative, less carbon intensive design options. And then, meanwhile, for larger projects, the model language requires a more rigorous whole building life cycle analysis and a targeted reduction of embodied carbon of 30% from a user modeled baseline representing a comparable business as usual building. Now, if that immediately all sounded confusing and foreign to you, I want to remind you all that you do not need to be an expert on embodied carbon to use this model language. It is designed hopefully to facilitate an easy insertion into the appropriate RFPs. And there's a lot more that we could talk about regarding the technical specifics and why we chose the strategies that we did. And I'm happy to talk about those later, but for now, those are the basics. So we now have the model RFP language, and MCAN is ready to get started putting it into action. And now that you all have a basic understanding of the project, this is where you all come in. First things first, we need to find suitable municipal construction projects that are currently being planned, and also the advocates willing to undertake this work. So now I want to invite everyone to fill out this form that I will put into the chat after the next presentation. So don't forget about it. It's quick, it's about 5 minutes long, and it asks for information on any upcoming public projects located in your municipality, like, for example, a new school or DPW building. If you have multiple projects, I will ask that you fill out one for each, please. We're going to follow up on these responses, especially for projects most suitable for this initiative, to begin collaborating on advocacy work and using this model language. And yeah, I'm super excited to take all the work MCAN has done in developing this language and to start translating it into on-the-ground advocacy work. And I hope many of you will join this effort so that together we can reduce embodied carbon and fight the climate crisis one town at a time. Again, please consider joining that next Better Buildings Advocates meeting to continue this conversation on the RFP language. Fill out the form that I'll put in the chat eventually, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Great. And thank you to everyone for your patience. I'm going to wrap it up here in just a moment, and then we'll get to the questions that you're waiting for. We will be taking questions first, please, if you could, on the first presentation, which is the Climate Goals Tracker. But first, I'm going to finish up by reiterating what Jack mentioned. The Better Buildings Advocates is a group that MCAN had for some years, working to reduce carbon impacts of buildings through sharing knowledge and mounting advocacy campaigns. And it it had been meeting for a few years every second Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. And it covered especially embodied carbon, and it really helped develop the field. As Jack has gone back or reached out to the experts in this field in the last few months, the experts in embodied carbon, they have each said, thank goodness for all the work that MCAN did through Better Buildings Advocates in moving along embodied carbon. So that's fantastic. It has been dormant for some months, and now we're asking it to be reformed. Asking meaning we're asking your interest, please. So we're going to ask you to click a link in a minute. And this next meeting in a couple of weeks, Jack, as he said, will be discussing the RFP language project that he just outlined. He'll be discussing it in more length, how it's structured, addressing your questions, and most of all, how to make it work for you. We're announcing right now the date and time will be a third Thursday this month, the 18th of September at 9 a.m. So jot that down, 18th of September at 9 a.m. And in the meantime, we'll put in the links to get the notice about that. Thank you for your patience as we quickly introduce these 4 exciting initiatives. And let's take questions first on the collaborative climate goals tracker tool. If you could raise your hands, please. I appreciate it. And we'll be taking questions. So, John, I see your hand up first. Go for it. And again, folks, please make your questions brief, and we'll try to make the answers brief, get to as many as we can. Go for it, John.
Yeah, hi, thank you. John Harris, Climate Action Brookline, and obviously speaking from a fairly dense urban part of Massachusetts, and that has to do with my question/comment, which is I absolutely agree that EVs are extremely important in reducing greenhouse gases, but I have been told, and I can't give you a source, that it is said at Climate Action Brookline that EVs still have 70% of the greenhouse gas emission total on average or something of fossil fuel cars. Larry is shaking his head. I'd appreciate a correction. But I'm just speaking in favor of adding a goal for micromobility, bikes, e-bikes, cargo bikes, e-scooters, etc. They do 4 massive, fantastic things for us. They reduce greenhouse gases significantly. They reduce road congestion. They reduce car parking space demand, which is a huge problem in Brookline, and I'm sure many other municipalities in Mass. And finally, if you pedal them, they're exercise in a way that even EVs are not. Thank you.
I'll wait to be called on them.
Anna, do you want to take that?
Yes, sorry, I was just waiting for Larry to mute because we're in the same room. So to the first comment, this is a common misconception around electric vehicles is the emissions that they are responsible for. I will put into the chat a tool maintained by the Union of Concerned Scientists, which shows you that a electric vehicle has less than 1/4 of the per mile emissions of a gas vehicle when charged up on the grid in New England. But many folks in this virtual room probably live in municipalities where there's a green municipal aggregation program where your electricity is even cleaner than Massachusetts average, let alone the New England states average. So the emissions are much, much, much lower on a per mile basis. And I had a second thought and it just flew right out of my brain.
Let me just jump in.
Sorry, go ahead.
About e-bikes and such. Great stuff. And what I'm about to say probably covers a significant category. What we're doing with Climate Goals Tracker is version 1 or version today. And it will be, Zana has said to us many times, and she has demonstrated, it is a living tool. It will continue to be developed. We look forward to future iterations.
If you don't mind, Fred, the other point that I wanted to make was that, so on a per mile basis, the Union of Concerned Scientists has data on that. On a life cycle basis, Union of Concerned Scientists also has data on that. So when you take into account battery manufacturing, vehicle manufacturing, the greenhouse gas emissions from EVs are still significantly lower. So I'll put another link in the chat that explains that.
And just a point, I think a lot of people on this call are in communities that have municipal aggregation where they add renewable energy. Brookline is a standout in that regard, John. Someone driving an EV and charging it up at home in Brookline would have a really low carbon footprint. Or if they went to 100% green electricity, which is more and more people are doing, then you're driving free, and that is absolutely not a reason to hold back on all those other micromobility ideas that you have.
Awesome. All right, let's try to get to a bunch more questions. Folks, if you could digitally raise your hand, please. I'd appreciate it. I don't see anybody else with a raised hand, but I'm sure there are other questions. Steve. Hey, Steve, go for it.
Hey, thank you all. Many of you I see on the screen. Great work for many, many years. Thank you all. But I have one very simple little question on heat pumps, which is something that I've struggled with for 25, 30 years, which is, heat pumps are great, but unfortunately there's a percentage of times you put in a one ductless mini split and you don't take your fossil fuel out of your house. And so what percentage of the heat pump covers your heating and cooling? That's a big issue. And are we talking about just the number of heat pumps or the number of homes that convert fully to heat pumps? And how do we work through that difficult challenge?
I'll try to give a quick answer, Steve. These are heat pump installations, period. Not number of heat pumps, but number of installations. So that's one aspect of what you're asking, and I know there's more. The percentage of load that is displaced by heat pump is a very important question, not directly addressed by this project. Again, this is version today, and next versions we hope will address that. Zana, I know, has raised that and is interested in tackling that. Zana, do you have another quick answer for Steve for the moment?
I just want to chime in, Fred, one quick thing. For this version 1, it's important for people to understand we picked things where there were good, reliable state data sources, right, Zana? There are lots of other things we wanted to look at, but we said, let's at least make it easy for communities to go to one site to get data on all 3 of these. So it's incumbent upon all of us to urge the state to make it easier for us to have better state data. Collecting it in a really decentralized way will be challenging, and we need to do that to have other metrics.
I see Edward's hands up.
Hi, thanks very much. And this is a great tool, and I appreciate all the efforts gone into it. My question is a broader question, given the subject matter. Is there any support by any members of the panel or any attendees to reduce our greenhouse gas goals and instead focus on reorienting our current efforts given the cutbacks in federal funding and incentives? My personal view is we shouldn't reduce those goals, but keep them out there. But there's a lot of legislative suggestions that should be done. Any comments on that?
So legislative and regulatory issues are significant and not the direct subject of this session, but anybody have a quick answer for Edward?
Green Energy Consumers Alliance is opposed to weakening our climate goals of 50% by 2030 and so on.
That's a quick answer. Thank you. And I'm sure Edward will come back to this as necessary. Thanks for broaching it.
It's an authoritative answer too. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry, for that answer and for continuing such answers for many years. Thank you for your leadership. Scott.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment about EVs that I never hear. I live in Massachusetts. I buy 100% green through green communities. And I've been paying $1.75 a gallon for equivalent for gasoline since I bought my EV. EVs in Massachusetts can be less than the gasoline and gasoline. In Texas, you got to be paying 75 cents a gallon because they buy electricity at 10 cents, not 30 cents. So I think we need to start looking at another portion of the marketing process. Yes, it's green. Yes, it's all this other stuff. But it's also a lot, everyone complains about the price of gas. Get to people on that end of the world. Get to them, and say, hey, if you're going to complain about the price of gasoline, go buy an EV. They're not more expensive than most cars that I see bought around here. Actually, they're probably less expensive. At least in my neighborhood, the average car must go for 50 grand. Average EV goes for 50 grand too. So, we have a marketing issue on this.
Scott,
And then heat pumps.
I love what you're saying, and if I may, tell me if this is off track, but I would love for every advocate here to have the urge to write a letter to the editor or to the radio station, whatever, whenever you hear anybody raise any notice about the price of gasoline, whether it's gone up or down or sideways, to say what Scott just said. Hey, how about the price of driving my car, which is not keyed to the price of gasoline? You're not covering me. You're not covering everyone with an EV. So thanks, Scott, for bringing that up. That's my take on that subject. Okay, more hands. Okay, let's move on. So let's open it up to questions on any of the presentations. And Jack, can you speak up for just a second? Have you dropped the respective links and tell us, just remind us that you have or haven't yet?
Yes, I did, but they have been buried by a whole bunch of other comments, so I can throw them back in.
No, that's okay. But just to be clear, Jack has dropped each one separately. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So sorry it's a little gawky, but please go into the chat and copy and paste each of the 4 links because once we're done with the webinar, it'll take a couple of days to get those back out to you in a different format. But we are launching things here today. We want them to get into action right away. Does anybody have any commentary or thoughts about Khadija's presentation about acting now? We have 22 days for people to buy as many electric vehicles as they should. Does anybody have anything to say about that? And again, we're not necessarily tracking all the comments. I'm sure there's a lot of good ones in the chat. If you could raise your hand digitally under reactions, I will call on you. Susan.
I'm wondering if anybody has any comments on the distribution transmission charges that are so high where I live that doesn't make sense for me to charge at home. I'm better off charging at public chargers where that usually isn't included in the price of charging. And do you know if that isn't charged, how much that's included in the kind of build out of EV chargers across the state?
Okay, I'm going to let Anna take a swing at that, but first I'll say Scott just advised nobody should move to Texas. And now are you saying nobody should move to Williamstown? Oh my goodness. All right, that was a joke.
Well, no, because Williams College has a lot of really good chargers that anybody can use, but I don't charge at my house. I go on to Williams, or they even put in some municipal chargers, but so there are good level 2 charging options, but not at my house.
Amazing. Okay, Anna, do you have a thought about this?
Yes. So real quick, I would be surprised that your home electricity rate is that much lower than a public level 2 charging station, but I hear the overall point of the per kilowatt hour charge on our electric bills has gone up in the previous years. I would say 2 things to that. First, fuel savings are one part of the financial savings for EV drivers, but the other part is maintenance. Oh, go ahead, Susan.
I was just going to say the difference in price, it's like 36 cents per kilowatt hour or 34 to 36 for me to charge at home. And it's like 20 cents for me to charge at the Williams College chargers. And it's also about 20 cents for me to charge at the charger available at my mother's retirement community in Lexington. And, I'm just finding in general that wherever I go, if there's a level 2 charger, it's quite a bit lower than that 34 to 36 cents.
Got it. You are good at finding the legacy chargers that are still charging 20 cents a kilowatt hour. So I would say most public charging is slightly more expensive than charging at home because you're paying for the convenience. But again, overall point is in general should be lower cost per mile compared to a gas car. The fuel cost savings is one piece, but the maintenance savings is another. Consumer Reports years ago had a study that showed that EV drivers are saving basically half of the lifetime costs on maintenance and repair. So that's a big piece of it. And then the last thing I want to say is that the state of Massachusetts is really looking at the issue of electricity rates really closely. The Department of Energy Resources has a whole electric rates working group. They've had various working groups and committees. The names all sound the same, but the state is tackling head on the question of, okay, we want to incentivize more and more people to get electric vehicles and switch to heat pumps. But at the same time, we have an electric grid that we need to maintain and all these programs that we currently fund with a per kilowatt hour charge. How do we make both of those things happen at the same time? So if you're interested in that, I would definitely say the electric rates working group is thinking about this issue very, very specifically.
Great,
And
thanks.
yes, the task force meeting starts at 1.
Okay. And okay, so speaking of 1 o'clock, we will continue this call at 1 o'clock. So those people who have their hands up, if you don't get your question addressed yet and can stay, that'd be great. We will continue the meeting. And I would just also say, again, if anyone's interested in the new RFP language, if you've got upcoming municipal project coming up in your town or city, do take advantage of that opportunity. Mary. Unmute. Okay.
Hit the button twice. First of all, I was just going to say to the person in Williamstown, I think the DPU is having the utility companies cut their rates for heat pump owners in the winter. So if you have heat pumps, you can look forward to that relief for charging your car. As far as I understand it, they can't differentiate. So if you're going to do the heat pumps, you might as well buy an electric car and make it really cheap. But the rest of my comments were reserved for the next section. So can I ask my questions now, or are you moving on?
Okay, good question. Let's come back in just a minute and let's see if Godfrey has anything quick or has anything pertaining to the presentations.
Hi, thank you. Mine, I think, about to go to Khadija's presentation. I wanted to also to find out from Khadija, because I think the state is giving some incentive to guys who are having heat pumps. I mean, when it comes to their like energy bills this winter, probably Khadija could also add that to be part of the talking points. And then also I wanted to find out from Khadija, when it comes to the deadlines, if the people we are talking to the faith church owners, I mean, single family home owners and everybody else, business owners, if they are able to beat the deadlines and make the installations happen, what will be the deadline for them to be able to apply for their credits? Thank you.
Khadija, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I think most of these, thank you for the questions. And most of these incentives that we mentioned in terms of solar and heat pump are for the homeowners, I believe. And as if they can prove that the construction has happened or the installation, I think they can apply for the tax credits. That's my understanding.
Right. Now, I will also, for solar and heat pumps especially, I will interject that these are not do-it-yourself projects 99.9% of the time. And so working with the contractor, the professionals who are very, very aware of these incentives going away is key. They know exactly what will need to be done by the deadline. And by the way, those contractors are very, very, very busy. Even though the deadline is December 31st, they are booked. So we're looking for MCAN would love to hear any anecdotal information about what's happening in terms of queues for people waiting for heat pumps or hoping to get heat pumps and solar in time. We've heard from contractors. We'd love to hear any other feedback. All right, and with that, it's after 1 o'clock, and again, I invite everyone to stay on. We will continue the conversations. Mary Gard is going to go first, and anybody can continue with the discussions about the presentations we've had or any other topic you'd like. MCAN is open to your thoughts. Again, please raise your digital hand. I am not following the chat. Jack, could you help out and let us know if there's anything in the chat that should come to everyone's attention? But in the meantime, Mary, go for it.
Great. So I just had a couple of questions. First of all, I'm very excited that the building group is going to be getting back together. So thank you for that. And my question is, first of all, will this be covering, besides the embodied language in the RFP, does it cover work that the DPW does as well? Not just buildings, but, you know, sidewalks and streets and that sort of thing? Or is it just for buildings? And my other question is, will it be for renovations as well? Or is, you know, or gut renovations? Given the economy, I think our town might be pulling back on some new buildings. I don't know. Certainly there are renovations that embodied carbon would be, you know, a factor in, including throwing away stuff. That's the other question. So does the embodied carbon language also include removal of debris and what to do with it? I guess those are my questions.
No, those are great questions, Marion. Let's hope we can remember all. I heard at least 3 different things. So, but one thing I'll throw in before Jack takes, because Jack is definitely considered all of the above, is that gut rehab would be applicable generally to with this RFP language. But the other 2 aspects, Jack, you want to take a stab?
Sure, yeah. And this is definitely just targeted towards buildings. Infrastructure is a huge source of public construction and it's a huge source of embodied carbon. But for this, we're just focusing on buildings, and renovation in there is incentivized in the language itself. It allows a design team to bypass some steps if they're renovating and reusing building materials instead of adding new ones, since that production of new building materials is the largest, generally the largest chunk of embodied carbon in a building over its whole lifetime. It's just that production of all the materials that go into it.
I'd say one other thought, Mary, is that since we're just launching this now, you know, again, this also will be living and will continue to accommodate developments and input, but what is it called? Hardscape, you know, DPW work that's not buildings. You could take this language right now and adjust it, but we're not necessarily going there at the outset.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Priscilla.
Yes, I think my question was a little bit similar to Mary's on the part, well, so I was looking into deconstruction versus demolition. And, you know, deconstruction would be recovering and reusing materials. And you know, maybe not every demolition immediately has a new building. So I wanted to express interest in also some RFP language when, you know, something's going to be demolished or set to be taken down. If there could be some language so that we can encourage that recovery of materials through deconstruction instead of demolition.
Jack, you have a thought about that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and planning for the end of life stage of a building is really important. So that's why we've sort of want to incentivize the use of a whole building life cycle analysis, because that really makes the design team look at the whole picture of the building over its entire lifespan the beginning of the project so they can start thinking about what's going to happen at the end of that cycle as well. So we have, for the larger building pathway, that's focused on a whole building life cycle analysis, which should start to get the team thinking about that at the end as well. And it gives flexibility for if they can make better improvements in another area of the building throughout its entire life cycle, then it allows them to go that route as well. But this path allows them to think about the end of life demolition versus deconstruction as well.
Good. So I'll throw in, if it's okay, Jack, I'll throw in also that MCAN could develop or help develop other tools related to embodied carbon, and there are good tools already that a community might grab or make use of early in the decision process. You know, do we tear down or do we reconstruct? That's an important consideration early. This tool that Jack is introducing today is not that one. But this is a good consideration. But I'll throw out this idea for all you advocates. A reason that I think is important why this tool is super critical is because a building will start construction next week. There's a building amongst our network that's going out to RFP in the next 3 weeks. We don't know what they are exactly. That's why Jack is reaching out to through our network to find them. And the point is that without this language or something just like it or similar to it, those buildings will go up with a lot more embodied carbon than necessary. We can stop that. It doesn't seem like an activist thing to say, but it's urgent. It's urgent. New construction will last a long time, and these buildings are going up every day. So it's an intervention that's necessary. So please, if you know of a project coming up, let Jack know through that form, and we will follow up. All right. Sorry for the soapbox. Okay. Let's see. Next question or comment on any topic. Raise your digital hand and you'll go first. Okay. Let's see. Scott and then Priscilla. We've got you're coming back around again. Great.
All right. Just want to make one comment. If the building's is already out to construction, you're not going to do anything about the embedded carbon with the process that it takes. You need to get in there when they advertise that they're going to start designing a new school. It's 2.5 to 3 years to get through the state school building process. You need to lobby like at the state building to make that a requirement for the funding. And so you're talking about that. Any other building in the municipalities, the same thing is you're too late. If you need to get on those building committees, go to those meetings as soon as they're announced. Otherwise, you're gone. I mean, no one's going to redesign a building at this point if they're going out to construction within the next 1.5 or 2 years, because that's how far along they are in the system. And they've already done their budgets. So, right. I mean.
But if I misspoke, I apologize. Yes, this is for RFPs for design, not for construction. You're right. If I misspoke, I apologize.
Even at that point, you may be too late, at least in the school buildings. You have to get in there when they're asking for the, I've been on the building committees, when they're asking to look for the commissioning agent and the project manager. If you're not in that system by then, you're already way behind the ballpark. You really need to monitor your towns and know when they're building things. And things sometimes get built 10 years after the project starts. So, but you know, that stuff's all advertised in every town. I don't know if there's somebody that has the time to go through and see when they're doing things. town meetings are another place to find out about that stuff. All right, I'll lower my hand.
No, that's good, Scott. And by the way, after Priscilla, if anyone has an upcoming project in their town and wants to just mention it by raising their hand, that'd be great. Priscilla, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if you guys had already shared the link to that survey where you're asking about upcoming building projects, and then are you guys gonna be like helping to look into where they are in the timeline? Because like I know we have a new fire station being built in Northborough. I just don't know where they are in the process.
Right, which gets back to what Scott was just saying. The timeline is everything. Right, right. And yes, Jack, we do ask. That is a purpose of the forum, is to ask where are you in the timeline. Correct?
It is.
And would you drop it again so that people see it again, please?
Yep, it's down there again.
Terrific, thanks. Godfrey, what community are you in? You're up next.
Yeah, I am in Draycott, and this week I'll be going to the first, I think, a school committee because they want to rebuild the elementary school in Draycott, and I'll be getting more info. This has just come in time for me, so I'm happy. I think I'll be in touch with Jack.
Wonderful, wonderful. Godfrey's saying he might be in the right place in the timeline. Great. All right, let's hope so. Terrific. This is a great conversation. Mary, and then Stephanie.
Sorry to keep talking. I just wanted to say that in our town, we have gone around to every board in town, our Climate Action Committee has, with a draft of a sustainable building guidelines, sustainable municipal building guidelines, and got their approval. And now so that when you build a building, you have to follow these guidelines. It's the rule. So now what we want to do is add the embodied carbon to that document. And in that situation, they know they have to put it in the RFP for design. You know, it's already been approved. And I'm trying to think if we even went to town meeting with it, but I can't remember. I guess we did. I should know this. But anyway, so all the boards have signed off on the document. It was a negotiation, you know, and it was a long roadshow to do that. But it was worth it. And I'm hopeful. The building committee is really dragging their feet on the idea of embodied carbon because it's an issue. It's, you know, people don't know the details and it's very complex. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. That's another way to do it, so you don't have to go to every single meeting.
Yes, there've been excellent municipal level initiatives. So, Wellesley, you're mentioning unembodied carbon, I should say, unembodied carbon. So Wellesley wants to get there. I hear you. Newton is there and Boston is there. And when I say there, they're slightly different, each of them. And MCAN has been involved with pursuing that community by community policies. And that's all good. It's all good. But we're jumping ahead with this project because in the meantime, 351 cities and towns, each one having who knows how many municipal projects coming and going, we want to get in front. And so with that said, Mary, we'll look forward to hearing whether you think this RFP language is of help as you draft. I will just add one more note, and I said a version of this before. The thinking about embodied carbon has leaped ahead in the last 2 years. So 2 years ago, architects, engineers would say, nah, I don't really know about that. Now there are architects and engineers that are super keyed into it. There are committees that meet regularly. Jack is on top of all of that. It has really come a long way. Our state is a leader in the country in this. So it is no longer the case that leading architects and engineers don't know about this. They definitely do, and they know what to do. So there's a statement. I hope you'll come back and confirm. Stephanie, sorry about that, and then Gretchen.
no worries. Thank you. So I'm in Medway, and we are actually in that perfect, perfect spot in the timeline, I think. We're planning a town hall and police and fire complex. There's I believe it's a 12-person committee, or 9 residents of all different backgrounds, a lot of architects and things that are knowledgeable. And so I will be filling out the form. But my really quick question, because it always comes down to everything, but are there costs, like, is there any like preliminary numbers of like, this costs, 3% more to incorporate this level of planning into into factoring in embodied carbon? I don't know if anyone can speak to that.
So,
Thanks.
Jack, I'll let you speak about it. I will warn us all that the lessons that have been learned in embodied carbon in the last couple of years are very, very similar to lessons learned in operational carbon that we've all been involved with for 10, 20 more years. One of them is fear. Fear can always and will always be used. Oh my gosh, that's going to cost more. Right? Does that sound familiar? Oh my gosh, that's going to cost more. Whatever it is. Oh my gosh, the electric car, that's going to cost more. It's just a presumption. It's just put out there with that tone of voice, not necessarily grounded in fact. And Jack, we've come across that it's not necessarily the case in embodied carbon either. Do you want to amplify or expand on that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like from what we've been talking to with all these architects, engineers, and other people who work with this stuff, is that the biggest roadblock to embodied carbon is just getting people to think about it at the beginning, getting to recognize the carbon cost of all the concrete and the steel and the whatever else is in the building, and then to look at that at the beginning and then use that to play with the design, to incorporate different design alternatives that have less embodied carbon. So you're not really talking about cost at that point, but more so time and the effort, which does cost, of course. But it seems like from what we had in our conversations that there's not a significant cost add as long as people learn about it, learn about the importance of it, and start thinking about it early on. I'll give you an example too. For concrete, for all the ready mix concrete, there's a whole bunch of different recipes that go into different ready mix products, and they all these recipes have different are differently carbon intensive, have different global warming potentials. So a big roadblock here is just that lack of knowledge, that a lot of these are not labeled, and the state's been doing better at labeling these concrete ready mixes to know exactly how much global warming potential that they have. But if you have the knowledge and you're thinking about this, you can pick out the ready mix that has less global warming potential, and it's just a matter of selecting it and not spending more.
Thanks,
So
Jack. And then, yeah, so in that particular example, concrete, it isn't necessarily an adder, is what it comes down to. Depends on which recipe you choose. And even if you go fuller into steel and other aspects, the differential is very small, typically. So there's a whole, just like operational carbon, does it cost more to be more energy efficient? We know all those arguments and discussions. It's just the same in embodied carbon. And I know I'm glossing here by making such a broad statement, but I've been just amazed how similar. Again, watch out for the fear factor anywhere at any time. Gretchen. You're muted. Sorry, still muted.
I apologize. Is there a relationship between building codes and the use of embodied carbon? In other words, if you use low embodied carbon materials, does that enable a building to meet the building codes of the present and the building codes of the future more easily? In other words, is that a feature of low embodied carbon materials?
Jack, you want to do you have a stab at this or no?
I can take a stab at it. Are you talking about, I guess what I'm hearing is, are you thinking that low embodied carbon materials may be asked for in the building code at some point?
Well, I'm just wondering if they are specified in building codes, and if a building has to meet certain standards to pass, just to satisfy the requirements of the building code, does low embodied carbon materials being used in that building assist in enabling the building to pass the standards of the building code?
You take a stab that at the moment, no, there's not
Wow.
a direct relationship. However, you want to talk about just very briefly, there's the statewide effort ECICC that
Sure. Yeah, the international code council that makes the international building code, the International Energy Conservation Code that Massachusetts uses as the foundation for our energy and building codes. The ICC that makes those codes that Massachusetts eventually goes on to adopt, they're in the midst of their code development cycle, and they are considering embodied carbon's place in the new codes coming out. And there's dueling efforts. There's those that want to completely put more restrictions on applying embodied carbon to the codes that are going to be coming out, and there's those in favor of it. It seems like right now that embodied carbon in the next iterations of the International Energy Conservation Code and International Building Code will be limited to voluntary appendices.
right. And at the state level, the Massachusetts state level, there's a commission ongoing right now that should finalize by the end of this year significant recommendations for changes in everything from state procurement. So when the state builds its own buildings, to consider embodied carbon seriously in each new construction, but also eventually to recommend that eventually I should say all of this should be embodied. All of this should be in codes. So all of this discussion will be made moot eventually, should be made moot when it's fully adopted in codes. But that's not for the next couple of years. So the work is cut out for us. Good enough for the moment, Jack?
I think so, yes.
Thanks. Susan.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to your conversation about the reasons that people shy away from embodied carbon requirements. In addition to the cost concerns, what I have heard from as some of you know, we're in the process of building a fire station, and what we're hearing from that committee was whenever we suggest sustainability measures of any kind, including embodied carbon, the response is, we can't do anything newfangled or risky because this is a safety building and we have to make sure that it is reliable. And so there's just the ignorance of the people on the committee who think that somehow these things that have been in practice for decades are too new for them and they're unreliable. The other thing is I wanted to just reinforce, I started working in building science like 15 years ago. And from the get-go, the answer was very first meeting for any construction project, sustainability has to be in the conversation from the very initial conception. And you have to be thinking about it at every stage along the way. Just wanted to reinforce that.
Nice. For anyone who has to run, in the next couple of minutes, I thank you for all your work, for your attention today. And I just want to say again, stay heartened. Massachusetts is leading we continue to lead. We do not need everyone to decarbonize today. We will continue to find those who can decarbonize, and we will meet our goals. Eyes on the prize, decarbonize. That's my final statement. Scott, you came off mute. Do you have something else you want to say?
No, I don't know how I came off mute, but
People are welcome to come take themselves off mute. We have a small enough group. I thank everybody for being here. Good to see you, Jane.
Good to see you, Fred and Jack. I think I connected you with Judy Gittleson, who is the person keeping an eye on the school situation in Pittsfield, Mass.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And by the way, somebody mentioned, Scott, you mentioned MSBA, which is a whole thing. MSBA has moved along, but they can always use more help. And we've had a couple of conversations, and we'll continue to have discussions. If anyone has wants to make an introduction, we're glad to follow it up. Hey, Marianne.
Can I ask a quick one?
Yeah, please, Godfrey.
Yeah, for the coming meeting with Jack, will we be able to get notifications or emails or something like that?
Exactly. If you clicked on Jack, are you able to check before we all sign off how many clicks you've got? How many people have clicked yet?
I will take a look. I think I can.
But yes, that's the idea. We'll send the official notice out to you. Thank you for asking that.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this together. Yeah.
Fran, it's good to see you. Are we making progress? Fran has been at this how many years?
Many. Yes, we are.
If
Thanks
Fran,
for this.
if Fran says so, that's a very good thing. How many years you've been in this, Fran?
I don't know. It's a good question. Many.
4 decades?
At least.
Exactly. Okay. Mary Dewart, any final comments?
Think that the idea of taking action for all the cities and towns in Massachusetts is a really wonderful gathering in of motivation and clarity. And I just congratulate all of us for keeping at this and keeping our goals in front of us. So thank you all for taking the time and the experience and the learning that we all need to work together on as a community. Thank you.
Great to see you, Gretchen. I know you're sorry. You're also working with Jack, I believe, Gretchen? Couldn't hear you. You were muted.
So sorry. Jack and I have had a few nice conversations, and I appreciate his engagement because we do have some building projects in the offing in Shrewsbury, and it would be really great for us to have the chance to talk with people in the municipal government, and especially to have something concrete in hand because we're not construction specialists or design specialists. So having, having something we can bring to the town gives us the ability to help the town make that connection with people with expertise. So I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jack.
Gretchen, you just said something. Bring something concrete. So that's a little bit of a pun there. I'm interjecting because seriously, you just made me think. If Jack actually showed up at a meeting and had samples of concrete in his hand. Look at this one. Look at this one. Do you see any difference? This one has an embodied carbon that's 50% less. Wouldn't that be something?
I love it. Show and tell.
So your unintentional pun may have just brought something up. And if we get them lightweight enough, Jack, we can just send them through the mail. Jim, Brett, Clark, and Orfeo, any last thoughts that any of you might want to express? Thanks for being here or having your lunch, whichever it is.
Thank you guys. This was great. Really appreciate it. Got a lot of good notes. Thank you.
Clark, thanks for being here. And can you just tell me what town it is that you're in?
So I work for the Cape Cod Commission. So we cover Barnstable County.
Cool. Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Gretchen. Good to see you.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.